Welcome, our dear viewer. Thank you for watching Uganda Catholic Television. Good news for all. I come again this week with our Responsible Citizenship, Responsible Leadership series, brought to you by Dr. Kiiza Emmanuel ALIBA, the Executive Secretary of Justice and Peace Department of the Uganda Episcopal Conference. Thank you for loving our Catholic television, and thank you for watching it. We are always very grateful to our bishops for having started this medium of communication, whereby we look at each other, we share the good news that we should all build each other. So we are very grateful to our bishops and to the Social Communications Department for this wonderful innovation of having our Catholic television in place. This is our other week where we bring to you, we share with you, we grow together in our journey of faith. As you know, our faith has to bear fruit. We have to produce the fruit. The faith, as we said earlier on, is not just to be lived, but also to be shared. So in this series, we share our faith with you, all of you who are watching Uganda television now. We had started a journey. We moved together in knowing and understanding the bishops' several messages that they have written to us in different times in Uganda. The bishops have moved with the people of Uganda before independence, during independence, and after independence. They have not left us as orphans. There was not a single moment when the bishops left us as orphans. They have always talked and they have always written. So the journey that we had started, we started some time back, is to ensure that we move together in understanding the various pastoral letters that the bishops have written to us. Last week, we dealt with the letter, Be Converted and Live. That was a very powerful message that the bishops wrote to us. It was quite an elaborate letter. And now this week, we come again with another pastoral letter, which was written in 1982 in November. Remember, the month of November is the month of Advent. So this message was a Christmas message. The bishops have in mind three things. One, the season of Advent, the season of waiting. Two, the Christmas season, the season of joy, having Christ being born amidst us. And number three, they also have the new year. The new year. The joy that comes with a new year. So when the bishops are writing this letter in November, they have those three things in mind. The season of Advent, Christmas, and the joy of New Year. So this letter is, the title of this letter is, In God We Trust. In God We Trust. Why did the bishops give this title to their letter? In God We Trust. I think each one can interpret or can meditate in his or your own way, but let's be very deep and see, why did the bishops give this title to the letter, In God We Trust? Let us recall On the day of, before independence, Archbishop Joseph Kiwanuka had given a letter, the Church and State Guiding Principles. At the time of independence, the bishops had issued another letter, Shaping Our Destiny. A few years after, the bishops gave another letter, Reshaping Our Destiny. You see, the guiding principles, shaping our destiny, reshaping our destiny. A year after, another letter is issued. The bishops issue another letter after reshaping our destiny. And that is, I have heard the cry of my people. Let's go deeper. Right after that, a year after, they wrote that letter which we dealt with last week, Be Converted and Live. And now, the bishops are writing another one, In God We Trust. If you are following the history of Uganda, almost you can easily be misled that the bishops are giving up. You can easily be misled and say the bishops are giving up. Because when you write, In God We Trust, someone can say, the bishops have talked and talked and talked, but nothing is changing. Not much is changing. So you can easily say, the bishops are giving up now. In God we trust. But no, the bishops are not giving up. Rather, the bishops are watching what is taking place, what has taken place since independence, and what is currently taking place in the country. And then they are issuing this letter, In God We Trust. A letter where they are very passionate about consecrating our country to the hands of our Mother Mary to help us reshape our destiny, to help us move forward. Because things were becoming out of hand. We got the independence, we spoiled our own independence. The wars were becoming wars. Mind you, as the bishops are writing this letter in November 1982, remember there was war going on in Luero Triangle. Remember that war was going on in Luero Triangle. People there were dying. The then army had moved in and had put a lot of spies. And people would die. They say, you are friends of the rebels and so on. And people are dying in Luero. That is the time when the bishops issue this letter. In God we trust. Say, but we have been in wars since our independence. And now another big war is coming. Is there. Is there. Roadblocks everywhere. Wherever you pass, there is a roadblock. No freedom. You are checked whether you are a rebel or not, whether you are cooperating with the rebels. Or, this is the time when the bishops are issuing this letter. In God we trust. things are not well in Uganda. People are killing themselves in Uganda. And they are not people from out coming to kill Ugandans. See, Ugandans killing Ugandans. So the bishops issue this letter, "In God we trust." That is November 1982, during time of Advent. But this is supposed to be a Christmas message for the people of Uganda. The bishops begin this letter, "In God we trust," like this. The Lord Jesus and his church have passed on to us, the bishops of Uganda, the pastoral care of the Christian people, the task of guiding these people towards love and faithfulness to the Lord, and towards the mission of salvation of our brothers and sisters and the nation. The love we have for Christ, the love we have for his church, and the love we have for our people urges us to take up the task of guiding and teaching in the present situation of sorrow in which we all live. As people are living in sorrow, the bishops are not living in joy. They are also living in sorrow. Actually, in more sorrow than the people themselves. Because I see it when my child is suffering, actually the pains I have are more than hers, or possibly. Because as a parent, I wouldn't like to see my son or daughter suffering, not at all. I want to give her the best that I can. I want her to live, him or her to live a full life, a life of joy. But when I see my son is suffering, my daughter is suffering, the pain is too much in my heart. The same with our bishops. When people are in pain, when people are suffering, when people are killing each other, the bishops are saying, don't think we, the bishops, are sleeping in our beds and we are comfortable. No way. We have a lot of pain. So the situation of pain, we are all living in it. So this is the message the bishops are saying, they cannot keep quiet, they have to talk. So our message will be one of hope, mutual trust, and goodwill. These are qualities of the Spirit that are absolutely necessary if we want to work seriously at the salvation of every individual human being within our nation. So, the bishops say, in this letter to you, we wish to renew our plea of true reconciliation, just as we have done in our previous letters. Reshaping our nation, I've heard the cry of my people, and be converted and live. We want to indicate the simple way that every man and woman of goodwill, indeed all communities of persons, must follow if we want to create a more human way of life for all. To our faithful Catholics, we want to show as a simple and efficacious way the sincere devotion to Mary, Mother of the Church and Mother of our beloved Uganda. We want to consecrate and entrust to her our nation in order that it may be led to a strong faith in her Son and towards the civilization of love. We ask each one of you to join us in this life, giving devotion to Mary so that through a nationwide movement of love and devotion to Mary, we may obtain the full rebirth of our country. So they had just called the people towards reconciliation. Be converted and live. If the people paid attention to their message and they actually converted, and now the bishops are saying the next level is to entrust you people who have been converted into the hands of our Mother Mary. We'd like to entrust this nation into the hands of our Mother Mary, because the Mother Mary will lead us to her Son, Jesus Christ. And once we are there, our nation will be safe. Our nation will again regain, they have called it the rebirth of our country, that our country will be reborn. As our brothers say, it will be born again. Our country will be born again. The rebirth of our country. The bishops went on to give the way of death and the way of life. He said to each individual and to each community is given the choice. You are free to choose the way of life, and you are also free to choose the way of death. You know, it's like Ugandans, we had chosen the way of death. We kill each other. We destroy one another. You know? So it is a freedom. In Uganda, there was too much thirst for power. The bishops bring it here. Too much thirst for power. People want to be powerful, but they forget the responsibilities that go hand in hand with having power. You know, having power without responsibility. You know? The power is there to serve, not to rule over. So, our Pearl of Africa had been really destroyed by powerful people who were thirsting for power. The thirst for power is even worse than the search for wealth. To acquire and hold on to power, people are known to make recourse to deceit, all sorts of falsity, suspicion, and most inhuman forms of violence. I hear it in campaigns. Sometimes I attend these. We listen to the radio, and they are during political campaigns. You hear what some candidates are saying after someone has introduced himself or herself. I am Honorable John. Honorable John. This is an honorable who is baptized. But you hear the words that he's saying on the radio. Say, this is looking for power, but not responsibility. Deceit, deceiving. Someone was saying that there was one politician who said, I will build a bridge where there was no river. Now you build the bridge where there is no river. You know? So the bishops are saying these have been happening in our country, you know. So they also reminded the people that salvation comes from Christ. True salvation comes from Christ. You know, in their letter, true salvation comes from Christ. This strength and this hope can only come from the presence of Jesus Christ among us. Jesus Christ is known as Emmanuel, namely God with us. That's my name now, Emmanuel. The bishops mentioned that. He came into the world to bring the good news of joy and peace to all mankind, in a special way to the poor and to the sinners. All we have to do is to accept him with all our hearts and follow him in all moments of our lives. When he came into the world, his country, the land of David, was in a worse situation than our own. So they gave that history when Jesus came into the world. The Romans had conquered Palestine and were keeping it under their yoke with the help of the Roman rulers and Roman armies, and so on. They gave that history. I hope you'll get a copy for yourself and read it. But what they're emphasizing is there were problems at the time of the coming of Jesus, also in Palestine, and the same, there are problems here in Uganda. So they say, well, the deep love of God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, showed itself by sending his Son for the salvation of all. So then after that, they gave some best principles for the life of individuals and the nation. So they put some principles if we have to rebuild our country, if we have to live a better life than we are living in, if we have to avoid these wars. They gave about how many principles here? There are quite a number of them. So number one, the first principle that the bishops gave is the principle of God is to be recognized and loved. The bishops had realized that actually we Ugandans were practicing lip service. We were professing the faith. We were professing the faith with our mouth, but the faith was not deep in our hearts. And in this letter, in God we trust, bishops called us and say, point of order, my children, let's deepen our faith. Let the faith go deep into our hearts. Because it's not, we could see it, that the faith could only be practiced in church. Then after church, things change. When people go out of the church, then blood is everywhere in the country. People killing each other. But then in the church you professed your faith. But these people who are dying here are called Emmanuel, Joseph. And those who are causing their death are also Emmanuel, Joseph. But what is the anomaly? It's because the faith has not gone deep into their hearts. They are still practicing lip service. So, the bishops gave the first principle of, if we need to rebuild our nation, God is to be recognized and loved. The best root of all evil in individuals and nations is the refusal of God. God constantly gives us life. God created us in his own image and likeness. God takes care of us. The work of his hands were his beloved children. These are the words from the bishops. These are the words of this pastoral letter. The bishops go on to say, in our unending fight for the common good, we are no longer alone, but God is with us, with all his love and his mighty power. He sustains and gives power to all our manifestations of goodwill. If God, they talk now like St. Paul, if God be with us, who shall be against us? Who can stand against our desire for all that is good? The bishops confirm to the people that God has not abandoned our land, but rather we have abandoned him. They assure the people. It's not God that has abandoned our land, rather it is us who have abandoned him. The ones who abandon him, problems start occurring. But this is not, it's not new. Remember in the Garden of Eden, when our first parents, Adam and Eve, abandoned him, problems started occurring. In the garden, problems started occurring. The same, you remember, among the Israelites, on their journey towards the promised land, whenever they would abandon him, problems would come. Remember, some were complaining about water and food in the desert. And we are told many of those who complained did not reach the promised land. Some were bitten by snakes, if you remember well. So never would people would abandon God, problems occur. It's the same even today. You who are watching Uganda Catholic television, what do you think? When you abandon God, problems occur. I've seen it also in my life. The moment my spiritual life goes down, problems occur. I've seen it also in my family. When we abandoned God, when we abandon God in our family, problems occur. For me, I'm not surprised when, with all these challenges that came with COVID. Possibly somewhere we may have abandoned God somewhere. Because why all these challenges? I don't want to be a pessimist. I don't want to be pessimistic, but if I see history well, because being a good student of history, I can see how things move in the past, in the present, and we can determine the future. If in the past people abandoned God and problems occurred, how about today? We abandoned God and problems occur. How about the future? There are going to be some difference. So the bishops are telling us not to abandon God. We should put God first. God has to come first in our lives. God has to be first. So, dear viewers, thank you for watching Uganda Catholic Television. We are going in now for the commercial break. And then when we come, we shall look at the principles that the bishops put before us, so that in order to reconstruct our nation that have been destroyed by our actions, now if we followed these principles that have been brought to us by the bishops in their letter, In God We Trust, we shall be able to rebuild our country. Thank you, and keep watching. We come back after this commercial break. Welcome back from that short break. Before we left, we were trying to read and understand the bishop's pastoral letter called In God We Trust. The letter that was written in the season of Advent in 1982. And in this letter, the bishops had given us the principles that we would follow in order to reconstruct our country, in order to reconstruct, to rebuild our country, which we had destroyed by ourselves from independence up to that year. The first principle that the bishops gave us was that we have always to recognize God and love Him. Now, the second principle the bishops are giving us is that if we have to reconstruct our country, the human person must be loved and respected. Human life has to be respected. The human person has to be loved. Because we cannot just treat a human being like a rat. We cannot treat a human being as if he's been, finding dead bodies along the streets of Kampala, people killing each other in different parts of the country. You cannot reconstruct the nation in that way. So the bishops are saying human life has to be loved and respected if we have to live in a beautiful country as the Pearl of Africa. The bishops say, by sending his only begotten Son to be one of us, God the Father showed in full the love and esteem he has for human person. If God has full esteem of us, if God has so much love for us, how about us loving our brothers and sisters? Human life has to be loved and respected. This is what the bishops are telling us. Even I see it even now when we are moving, there's some people say, for me killing is no problem. Killing, but killing what? A rat or a goat? The human life has to be respected. This is key. So the bishops say, the church often speaks of the dignity of the human person. This is so because Jesus Christ, its founder, himself became a member of the human race for our salvation. Jesus Christ became a member of the human race for our salvation. So the human dignity has to be always respected. The rights of individuals, the rights of people have to be respected. And the bishops were very clear. They brought out in this letter, In God We Trust, they brought out these rights that they talk about clearly here. They say, at this point, we wish to list very briefly some of the fundamental human rights. And number one is the right to life, which includes the right to security, the freedom from threat, injury, or and damage. Second is the right to honest work and adequate retribution for the work done. 3, the right to justice. All human beings have a right to fair trial. Even the worst criminal who has violated the common good is entitled to legal defense and to fair trial. The criminal does not lose that inborn human dignity. A political system that does not respect justice instead has already abdicated both its dignity and right to exist. The bishops goes on to say, the right to freedom of association. Human beings have the right to band together in defense of their rights and in order to work together to reach common useful goals. Freedom, being God's gift, must be used for the good of the individual and society. So the bishops in their letter give all these fundamental human rights that have to be respected by everybody. The other principle that the bishops bring out in this pastoral letter is that the land, the country, must be respected and loved. That our land and our country, Uganda, must be respected and loved. Dear viewers, whoever is watching this Catholic television, Good News for All, let us come back. Let's meditate upon what the bishops have told us, that we have to respect our land, that we have to respect our country. I think their call is still fresh, even now. I mean, I've seen it. In the bus, people buy bottles of water, and instead of putting the bottle after drinking the water in a litter bin, somebody throws it out of the window of the bus. Where it is going, it's not anybody's concern. It's not concerned at all how it is disposed of. It is painful. Sometimes I stop and see, there's a river in Hoima, the river that separates the town and our hill where we stay. We stay in Bujumbura East. There's a river there called River Bigajuka River. When you see the garbage that it collects from the town and you look at the garbage in the river, you say, my God, where is this garbage coming from us? Respect for the land, respect for our country. God did not make a mistake to put us in Uganda. If I had chosen, possibly, if I had a choice, I would have possibly, asked God, you remove me and take me to the US. But even if I go to the US, I'll be a Ugandan in the US. Because this is my home. This is my home. Sometimes I like my president, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. He asked a question. People were telling him, go away, go away. He said, but where do I go? This is my home. This is my country. He made something very serious. People are taking it so seriously, but he made it so simply. say, go away, go away. I say, where do I go? This is in my home. They say, you go to Rwachitura. I says, but Rwachitura is in Uganda. So this is my home, my beautiful home. Uganda is my home. You, our beloved young generation, those who are coming after us, you are in the universities, you are in the secondary schools, you are in primary schools. You have more days to live in Uganda than ourselves. Protect your country. Love your country. Once you love your country and you protect your country, you will have a better place to live in. This is why we build strong houses. You build a house with a name that within 50 years, this house will still be beautiful. Why do we build strong houses? Is because we are looking at the future. That even in 50 years, I should live in a comfortable house. So I build a house with a name of having 50 years living in a comfortable house. Can we do the same for our country? We plan it in such a way that within 50 years to come, we shall live in a more beautiful country. This is what the Holy Father, Pope Francis, is calling upon us in his encyclical Laudato Si. That we live in this country, not as though we borrowed this country from our ancestors, but we live in it as if it is a debt, we owe it to our future generation. So can we prepare a country that the future generation will be proud of us, that our grandparents prepared for us a wonderful country? So the bishops are calling us respect for the land, respect for the country. This is the highest level of patriotism, to know and practice and put in practice the knowledge that Uganda is my home, my beautiful home. I have to maintain its beauty and I have to promote this beauty for the future generation. Loving our land, loving our country. This one I can talk and talk and talk about it, because I've seen it. I've seen it when I'm moving around. Our young generation they don't seem to value this land. They don't seem to value this country. Our country is beautiful. God gave us a beautiful country. My young people, God gave us a beautiful country, which we must all protect. Let's protect and preserve the beauty of our country. This is what the bishops are telling us here. We should love our country. And if we did it consciously, if we protected our country consciously, we would live a very good life in Uganda. Wherever you go in Uganda, it's so beautiful. The country is so beautiful. And you go to Karamoja and you move in those hills. When you are entering Karamoja itself and you look at Mount Moroto before you, you don't feel like coming back to Kampala. No. When you are going to Tororo and you see those beautiful scenery there, you feel like staying in Tororo. Now when you come to Bunyoro, which I call the Pearl of Uganda, if Uganda is a pearl of Africa, then Bunyoro is the pearl of Uganda. So when you are moving to my area, I always tell people, if it was not for responsibility, for national duties, I would not be here in Kampala. No way. I would traverse Bunyoro, come to Kibale, go to Masindi, the beauty of that place. I love my country. Yes. When you are moving in northern Uganda, oh my God, like from when you move from Gulu to Kitigum, there's somewhere you want to stop and just enjoy the beauty of the country. We have a beautiful country. We have to protect our country. So what the bishops are saying here is very, very, very vivid. We have to love and respect our land. We love and respect our country. The bishops also tell us that there is a need for renewal. We have to renew ourselves. So they say, God, we have to renew our love, we renew our service to our country. The fundamental task for the renewal of the nation has its beginning in the renewal of conscience. As we have said in our letter, be converted and live. We have to renew ourselves, to make ourselves new again, to make ourselves born again. We must not live expecting others to be the first to change. This is serious. We must not live expecting others to be the first to change. Each one of us must begin at once. Yeah. I'm part of that world network called the Initiatives of Change. I'm one of them. The headquarters is in Switzerland, in Geneva. There's a small place on top of the mountain called Coax. C-O-A-X, Coax. It's up in Geneva. For those who like Googling, you can Google Initiatives of Change. I'm part of that. This was a movement that was started by Frank Buchman. It's called moral rearmament. Of course, Frank Buchman got it also from Gandhi. He said, change starts with me. Change begins with me. I should change first. Change does not start with the other. No, change begins with me. Moral rearmament. Frank Buchman. I've been there several times in Coax, in Geneva, and every time I am there, I feel so good. And the topics we discuss, change begins with me. Yeah, I like that movement, the initiatives of change. Change starts with me. So the bishops are saying, let us not expect others to change first. No, let's begin by ourselves. We renew ourselves, and then others will come. But let us begin it by ourselves. So, when all of us will have been reborn, then also the others will have changed. At this moment in our country, it's not the question of changing social institutions, but rather a question of a renewal of individuals. I think if you have to reconstruct our country, we need the renewal of individuals, not so much the renewal of institutions. Once individuals are renewed, the institutions automatically will be renewed, automatically. But the problem is the renewal of individuals. Here the bishops say, because if human beings do not change, even the richest system or the wealthiest country will not survive, but will rather be weakened and perish. So it's the individuals. The renewal I see it when we are traveling along the road. You are moving. You are moving in one line. All of a sudden, you see another vehicle coming in the wrong direction, overtaking. Possibly because this person does not have time, and for us, we have a lot of time on the road. And sometimes I'm very surprised, including the police itself. Yeah, if you are going for urgent duty, it is understandable, you know. But sometimes it is not urgent duty, but because you have a siren or something, you pass. Is it because for us we have a lot of time on the road, so we can? And sometimes these people we are passing here actually have more responsibilities than we who are passing. I see some taxi guys. Oh, I see the taxi. But I say, the person you are passing here possibly is holding national duties. You know, this is renewal of individuals. The renewal of individuals. The bishops are very cognizant of that. And then the bishops immediately dedicated our country in the hands of Mary, Mother Mary, as the sign of hope for Uganda. No? So they say, in this time of loss and confusion, while we are asked by the Lord to give new life to our country, we want to offer to all the spiritual children of the church a great light of hope. And that is the Virgin Mary, Mother of God and ours, Mother of our faith and Mother of our country. We want to consecrate, the bishops are saying, we want to consecrate to her ourselves and the church in Uganda, that she may lead us to Christ, her Son, who is the source of life for all. The worst difficulties will not make us fear if we walk in her company. To me, I agree. As you walk hand in hand with Mother Mary, done deal. I say this with all joy, with all the confidence, because I have tested it myself. If you want, my young people who are watching, test it also. The psalmist who said, taste and see the goodness of the Lord. I used it to sing it. Oh, taste and see the goodness of the Lord. So if you want to taste what the bishops are saying, taste and see. Just move with Mother Mary in your life. Just move with Mother Mary in your family. You will see. So what the bishops are saying is the truth. I have tested it. If you want to know, come home. Come to me, I will tell you. I have tested it. So the bishops entrusted the entire country in the hands of our Mother Mary. So they consecrated this country to our Mother Mary. So here they conclude the letter, and the bishops say this letter is meant to be a ray of hope for our Christian people. So they asked the priests to explain this letter to all the Christians and to guide them in their small Christian communities and at all the levels to ensure that this letter is put in practice. And they also asked the religious and the catechists and the lay leaders also to ensure that this letter is implemented. So they wished, they say, this work of reconciliation and national building, if done together, will most certainly be a first and fundamental step towards the celebration of the centenary of our Uganda matters. So the bishops signed the letter and they issued it to the people of Uganda. Thank you, our dear viewer. Thank you for watching Uganda Catholic Television, Good News for All. So today, this week, we have handled that letter of the bishops. In God we trust. So in the next week, we shall again come with another pastoral letter of the bishops, especially that which deals with celebrating our faith as Ugandans. It's another very interesting pastoral letter that we shall tackle when we come in next week. Stay watching Uganda Catholic Television, Good News for All.